And we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. My name is Janet Bennett. I'm with Thomson Reuters. I've been with Thomson for quite some time. I've worked with Montor Suite for the last, since it launched in 2005. And what we're going to do today is talk about tips and tricks around our deal content. So I labeled this Let's Make a Deal because we're going to look at deal content today. So thanks everyone for joining. Just a couple of housekeeping rules as we get started. All of our guests on the line are muted as we go through the session today. Our session will run 30 minutes. I would ask if you have questions, you can please submit them through the chat box that you'll find through WebEx, or we'll open up the mics at the end and you're welcome to ask questions in person at the end of the session as well. So with that, we'll get started. All right, so our agenda today is to learn about the offerings from Thomson Reuters Deal Monitor and how you can obtain specific and customized trending information around the most acquisitive companies and the deal makers. We're going to talk about several different things. We'll talk about how to learn how to identify the most acquisitive companies in an industry or region. We'll talk about how to identify the law firms involved in the deals, how to target companies that have rumored M&A activity in order to help your firm identify potential ancillary work surrounding a deal. We'll also talk about how to research the most recent private equity offerings by industry or region and then identify the participating investors. And last, we'll talk about how to prioritize deal makers in an industry or region based on revenue growth. Before we jump into those key tasks and go live into the system, I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about what is in the deal content that we are analyzing in Montor Suite. I looked at the attendee list today, and it looks like some of you use Deal Monitor. Some are considering Deal Monitor as a subscription module. So I want to spend just a minute to go over what is Deal Monitor. In the Deal Monitor piece of Montor Suite, we're analyzing several key pieces of information. We're looking at mergers and acquisitions, private equity funding, loans, bonds, and SEC filings. The mergers and acquisition content is covering public and private companies, public and private mergers and acquisitions from 233 target country nations. Private equity looks at investment companies and the investments they're making all over the world as well. The loans and bonds will be private loans and bonds that include corporate and government bonds from around the world, as well as U.S. and international public and private agreements that are not filed with the SEC. And then our deal content also includes SEC filings. That will be things like stock offerings, IPOs, asset-backed securities, and other offerings that are filed with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. So what makes our content different, or what is the advantage of using our content? About a year and a half ago, we added a very large amount of privately sourced information to Montor Suite. We made a multi-million-dollar investment to bolster the data that's in Westlaw and Montor Suite. And what that means is that we are now using data that's also gathered by our sister company, the Thomson Finance and Risk Division. They gather information on private deals, and that now feeds into Westlaw and Montor Suite. The deals that they gather are gathered through or sourced through direct deal submissions from global banking and legal contributors around the world. There's also a research team, a global team of dedicated research analysts that look at a broad range of sources. They'll look at things like regulatory filings, corporate statements, media, pricing wires, and they try to attain the most robust information pertinent to a transaction. We have agreements with financial institutions to provide information. We have companies that want to be part of the Finance and Risk League table, so in order to help themselves get more business, so they are incentivized to submit their information. We also have a team of editors, about 300 editors that track companies globally, and they integrate acquisition and divestiture information into the Montor Corporate Authority file. So all in all, we have a very global database of public and private deals. We are sharing information with our sister company, Finance and Risk, that feeds the same data into ICON and Thomson One Banker. And for you, that means you now have a very large collection available at your hands to be able to aggregate data and look at kind of big data around deals. So the M&A information, it's about 1 million public and private acquisitions. I mentioned 233 countries. That will cover things like stake purchases, asset sales and divestitures, buyer transactions, buyouts, tender offers, privatizations, spin-offs, repurchases, self-tenders, restructures, and liquidations. The private equity information is really about the investment companies that are investing in portfolio companies, and they're holding those investments in investment funds. But that would be private investment, like, you know, investing in a company like Uber or something like that. But that will cover over 200,000 documents, and that's global in coverage as well. The loan information covers loan agreements not filed with the SEC. That would be over 200,000 loan documents. And it talks about things like how the proceeds are intended to be used. It looks at borrowing capital. It gives valuation of loans. It is international in coverage and covers public and private. And it does include syndicated loans. It gives information on the lenders and law firms involved in the transactions. Bonds will cover over 4 million bond transactions, again, around the world, including corporate and government bonds. It does not include municipal bonds, although we've had requests for that and are considering adding that. Profiles can include things like the value, the issuer, the underwriter, law firms, and role metrics. And then securities transactions, I mentioned this would cover things like IPOs, stock offerings, notes, asset-backed securities, and others. So the information that we'll be looking at, it's well organized. It gives you a holistic view of a company or an industry and how that information is used. It helps you identify things like who are our competitors, who are our best prospects, and more. So let's take a look at these tasks for today. So the first two we're going to look at together: identify the most acquisitive companies in an industry or region, and identify the law firms involved in the deals. We're going to move over to the live system. So I'm in Monitor Suite. I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger for our session so everybody can see it well. When you log into Monitor Suite, you're probably used to running a company search or other searches, but there's a search down here a little further down that says Recent M&A Transactions. If you click that, it will search M&As from the last 18 months. And you'll see with the show search criteria, it's defaulting to 18 months. So it's just a nice way to see what's been going on, who's been having the work, who's handling the work, which companies are involved, who's being acquired and divested. So in the last 18 months, there have been 73,000 mergers and acquisitions that are collected through Monitor Suite. I wanted to point out under company ownership, you can quickly identify which companies are public, or how many companies are public and how many are private that are involved here. And you'll see that we have over twice as many private company deals as public. So that's a huge collection that we've been able to add to Monitor Suite. If we want to know who has the work, we can look at company distribution. There is a transaction role that would show acquire or divest, acquire or target, so we could filter these entities to see who's acquiring and who's divesting companies. But here's your top hit list. People's Republic of China actually rolls up a lot of Chinese companies into one entity. We can break that down, but you'll see there are a tremendous number of deals coming out of there. Here are the law firms involved. So who's been involved in the transactions. Now this shows the transactions based on the deal value, not on the number of deals, but you'll see on the right-hand side it also gives you the number of deals. So if I wanted to sort this by the deal count, I can view my full list and sort that list easily to see who's handled the most deals. I wanted to spend just a minute looking at the industries, because part of this was looking at the most acquisitive companies in an industry or region. So if I wanted to look at this by industry, you'll see I can click onto industry, and I could have actually done this before I run the search. There's some filters you can apply before running your search. But here's my industry distribution, and let's say that I want to look at technology companies. I can see technology here in yellow. I can see the number of deal counts over the last year to this year, or over the last 18 months, pretty even. Same for values. I'll go ahead and click on that to filter our report. If I had wanted to filter this report by where the companies are located, as this reopens, you'll see that there is a company location option. So we have that as a way to filter the reports as well. Company location will actually show us, starting with continents, but we can filter this by, it starts with these broad categories, but we can filter this by state. We can even filter it down to a city. So I want to know who are the companies that have this work from the technology industry. And here are our top companies: Qualcomm, Broadcom, Microsoft. I can see all of the law firms by clicking on law firms, or if I just want to take a closer look at Microsoft, again, I just click the filter, and we can then in turn see who's been representing Microsoft. And actually here we can see which entities of Microsoft have had activity, acquisitions or divestitures. Here's the law firm representation, so who's handled these transactions for Microsoft. We could look at transaction roles to break it down by acquire or divested or acquire or target. And I like to just look at the source documents to get a quick glimpse of who has Microsoft been acquiring or divesting. I think this is a nice way to quickly see what the activity looks like. All right, so I mentioned filtering to company location. We're looking at the most recent M&A work based on the technology industry. Let's flip that around and look at this by location. So I'm going to remove Microsoft. Actually, I'll remove all of these refinements. And if you didn't notice, I clicked on the Show Search Criteria. It will show all of my filters at the top. It's easy to remove one or more at a time. And then I live in Dallas. If anyone detected a slight southern accent, there is a company location. What I'd like to do is look for companies in Texas that have had recent M&A activity. So when I go to company location, I can then click on the United States. And then you'll see Texas is number 3 for deal values. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so a lot of these are coming out of Houston, followed by Dallas, Fort Worth, Irving, and San Antonio, and Austin. The companies with the work will display next. And again, this is 18 months. So we've got AT&T, Texas Energy Future Holdings, GE, Enbridge, Amazon, ExxonMobil. Some of these companies you see, you may think, now is that company headquartered in Texas? Our system will show the parent company, regardless of whether the parent is in Texas or not. But if you see one that you don't think is a Texas company, it would be making the list because a subsidiary had activity that was in the report, a subsidiary that is based in Texas. Let's look at law firm representation. And we can click on those companies to see which entity had the activity. Here we go. In turn, you can also click on law firms to see which office of the law firm handled the work. So while Weil Gotshal I think of as a New York firm, it may be that it's one of their Texas offices that's handling the work for these M&A transactions for Texas companies. And we can see that by clicking on Weil Gotshal. Source documents, again, will give us a listing of the M&A activity. Again, this is for Texas-based companies and who they have been acquiring or divesting. If you're using the system and you forget what your search is, remember you can always view the search criteria at the top. It says Show Search Criteria. You can click it. If you wanted to remove that filter, it's easy to remove the Texas filter. You can also click Undo Last Action, and that will take you back one step as far as your filters go. All right, so we ran a search for M&A transactions from the last 18 months. We filtered by industry, and we also filtered by company location. We can also tie those two together. I didn't have to take off one of the filters. I could have said I want technology companies in Texas and look at it with that kind of a slant on it as well. That search was down here under recent M&A transactions. And I applied the filters after we ran the search, but you can also go over here under Refine Search and add things like transaction status, transaction range value, transaction role, before you run the search. This doesn't have the industry or company location, but it does have some other filters that would help you speed up the process if you have filters that you want to apply. All right, so I'm going to go back to our slide for just a minute. We talked about the first two bullets. Next, we're going to talk about how to target companies with rumored M&A activity to identify potential ancillary work surrounding a deal. So when we're looking at these reports, even with private companies, by the time a deal makes it into our database, whether it is, by the time a deal is announced, the company most likely has a law firm that is helping them with that deal. They have hired someone to help them with that transaction. However, there's a lot of work that accompanies a deal that the law firm may not be able to handle. They may want to hire someone else. The company may want to hire someone else. It could be things like tax work. It might be sale of real estate. It might be reworking compensation plans. It could be some other employment issues, or there's just a myriad of things that can go along that a deal can generate, some antitrust issues and so forth. So one way that we've had clients identify work that their firm might handle, work that isn't always typically handled by or analyzed in Monitor Suite, is to look for rumored deals. So I'm going to hop back into Monitor Suite. I'm back at the new search, and we can do this a couple of different ways. If we were to run an industry search, like let's say we wanted to search the technology industry, I can type in technology. Oops, I missed the Y, but that's okay. Once I've added my industry under Deal M&A, I can look at transaction status, and I could say, I just want the rumors. Or maybe I also want to add seeking buyer or seeking target. I want to look for those really entry to the deal type searches that we might run. I can also do this search this other ways. I might search by company location. So I could say I'd like to look for those Texas companies or even a city. And I could also go back and just use my recent M&A transactions, but maybe this time I'll just search the last 6 months. And with this, I'm going to do that same refinement, transaction status. I'm going to look for seeking target, rumors, or seeking buyer. Okay? So last 6 months, rumors or seeking target or buyer. And here's the breakdown between rumors and seeking buyers. So if I wanted to look at, but these don't have deal values because it's such early stage, but we do have deal counts. I can break this down in a number of different ways. I think the things we might be most interested in, though, would be what kinds of companies are rumored to have deals. So a lot in the automotive, some business services, chemicals, construction. If I wanted to know who these companies are specifically, I can click on company distribution. Now, it looks like there's a lot of entities that just have one rumor or one seeking buyer. So I might want to look at the company full list to see everyone. If I wanted to filter this by where the companies are located, again, I could start my search that way, or I can run this report and filter down to companies, maybe this time in Asia, or filtering into the United States again. I'm going to click on the source, and there are some law firms listed in these reports. A lot of the rumors will not list a law firm because it's such early stage. So you'll see out of the 956, we have about nine deals that list a law firm. So it's rare that we will see this. But if you were to identify a firm that was, that had a rumored deal, or a company that had a rumored deal, we could always turn around and run that company in Monitor Suite to see who they have used in the past, to identify who you might be working with in trying to get work. Last, I'll look at source documents just to see what the most recent rumored deals are. And some of these we have to link back into Westlaw to see the documents, but you get the idea. All right, so we looked at rumors. We did that by running a recent M&A report, and then by filtering over on the left using the transaction status and choosing rumors and other categories that we thought were relevant. All right, so moving on. Our fourth bullet is researching the most recent private equity offerings by industry or region and identifying the participating investors. So let's take a look at that. Recent private equity offerings by industry or region. So again, there are a few different ways we can attack this. We can run an industry search. So if I wanted technology or energy or whatever it might be, I can type in my industry. I can also browse the industries and look for industries this way. I can run the company location search for looking for my region, and that would be where a company is headquartered. So again, we've got city, state, country. And I also have an option to run recent private equity transactions, which would be transactions just from the last 18 months. For this one, I'm going to use the company location search. And we're going to look for the Silicon Valley area. So I'll look for San Jose, Palo Alto, Mountain View, not Arkansas, but California. And I think I'll just leave it with those three for the sake of time. Over here on the left, I'm going to edit the date before we run it. So with this one, I think I'll just do the last 3 years. So recent private equity offerings, here we're looking at Silicon Valley. And we could add some other cities if desired. And actually, I'm going to edit this real quick. I had an example to show you, and I think by shortening my search, I think I left it out. So let me add a couple in. Okay. One more time. Okay, so we've got 4 cities in the Silicon Valley area. We're looking for activity in the last 3 years. And I didn't run private equity only. I ran companies by location. So you'll see it's also populating the litigation materials. It's populating patents, trademarks, and all of the deal information. But what I want to show you is the private equity information, which is down at the bottom left. You'll see deal private equity portfolio companies and then deal private equity investment firms. So as we look at the portfolio companies, these are the companies that are obtaining investment. And this is listing it based on the number of financing rounds and the related value of the financing. So actually we're listing these by the value of the financing, but you'll see the rounds listed and then the number of portfolio companies with each company. Some companies like Symantec may have, other entities within them that are getting funding, and they're the parent company. So as I look through this, I looked at this earlier yesterday when I was preparing, and one that caught my eye was Peloton technology. And I thought immediately of the exercise bikes that seem to be the latest thing that have, videos that you can integrate with, and it's supposed to make you want to go ride your exercise bike, but I don't think it would work for me. So I thought, well, I want to look a little bit at their information. That's actually not the exercise bike company. When I looked at that, that's a new automated trucking technology company that was launched, I think, about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But they have developed some technology that helps improve safety and fuel efficiency, where trucks do what's called platooning, where it reduces the drag. Trucks drive very closely together. It makes it more efficient. It's supposed to be safer. But if I wanted to take a closer look at this, it almost made me think of the self-driving cars. It's getting into that realm of business. But if I wanted to take a closer look at this particular company, it's simple to just click the link, and then we can find out who is investing in Peloton technology. We can look at, what the investment is and what stage this company is in. So we're really just now moving into this company's report within the private equity section. So we see they've had 5 rounds of financing. Here's the related value of that financing. Investment firms will show us who has invested in Peloton. So companies like Intel, Nokia Growth Partners, Birchmere Ventures, and Volvo entity. And again, this is the parent company. We can click all of these and filter to the next level to see which specific entity, like Intel has a separate investment arm. If we want to know where these funds are held, there's an investment fund section. So Intel Capital, Unspecified Fund, and others, Band of Angels. Company status will tell us probably that they are operating as active companies, where the company is located, their industry, and their operational stage. This one is shipping products and providing services. And then you can also see things like their latest round financing stage, their expansion stage, their latest round valuation. And then source documents will just provide a link back to the Westlaw Business Law Center where you can see those underlying documents if desired. So that will, again, link to Westlaw. That would pull those under your Westlaw plan. Okay, so this is all, when we added that filter to Peloton, it filtered within the portfolio company section. It did not filter around the private equity investment firms. So I also want to take a brief look at this investment firm section. When I ran my search for company location, it looked for companies that were portfolio companies in those cities. It also looked for investment firms in those cities that were investing in companies. So I can look at this both ways. Who are the companies that are getting investment? Who are the companies that are investing that are in that area? So when I click on investment firms, it first shows me the portfolio companies. So these are the companies that those investment firms in the Silicon Valley are investing in most based on the value of the deals. And then the investment firms are listed here, a little farther down, I guess. So Silver Lake Partners, Sequoia Capital, New Enterprise, Accel Partners, and others. I can also see the funds, and I can see things like the types of companies that they are investing in by industry. Technology seems to be the top quite frequently. I can look at the company location, so you can filter these in different ways as well. All right, so we got to that by running a company location search, but you can also get to this information through industry searches and through the recent private equity report. All right, and we're coming up on the top of the hour. I have one more bullet to mention. One was prioritizing deal makers in an industry or region based on revenue growth. I wanted to mention Opportunity Finder for this task. Whenever we did that company location search, you have to type in individual cities, and it only searches those cities. However, Opportunity Finder has a really neat feature where we can search for companies, and we can say, I'd like for them to be in a certain region. So whenever I search for companies, whether it's public or private or both, here's company location. And if I put in San Jose, I can add that to my report. And notice it's check marks to search the city's surrounding area. So I don't have to know every city that's in the Silicon Valley. I can put in a couple of the bigger ones. It searches a 50-mile radius outside of the city. If I wanted to say, you know, I'd like to look for those kinds of companies, and then maybe I want to look for other companies like Peloton. I saw that Peloton was indexed to the NAICS codes for custom computer programming services. So if I want to look for other companies like that, it's just a matter of typing in their industry. And then to look for companies that have growing revenue, you'll see on the left, here's revenues. So I can look at current revenue or revenue growth rate, and when I choose one of these, it will ask me, do I want it more than, less than, or between? As long as I say more than 0, it's going to be growing. So we'll add that to the report. As I move through this, I can ask for legal activity. So if I wanted to say they need to have some kind of M&A activity, I just select that, add those to my report, and then continue. This is just a simple menu-driven system. You pick and choose what you want to put into it. The last page will ask you what goes into the report. I'll add that. Sometimes I'll set a sort order and then submit to run the report. I ran 3 to quickly show you, and we'll wrap with that. But here's one where I said I want to look for companies from that custom computer programming services industry that had M&A activity and their revenue had to be growing in the past 3 years. So as we look at this, it gives you the names of the companies, address information. Again, this report that I ran was global, so you'll see a lot of foreign countries, including China, Poland, Japan, Australia. It gives me website information, telephone information, CEO and GC if it's a public parent. For subsidiaries, it doesn't always provide that. NAICS codes, employee counts, revenues, and then here's my revenue growth rate. I had asked for revenue growth in the past 3 years, so here you see that. And then there's a link out to each company's report. on Monitor Suite. So if I wanted to take a closer look at peak positioning technologies or one of these companies, I just copy that link and paste it into my browser. Here's one where I said I want to look for San Jose and San Francisco area companies with M&A activity and revenue growth. So again, I just went through the menu system. I chose my cities. I said M&A. I said revenue has to be growing. Same kind of thing. It will show me their revenue, how much it's growing, the number of deals, and so forth. And then I also ran one where I just said San Jose, San Francisco, and South San Francisco. When I only put in those cities, I got 66 companies. When I let it run the search where it searches the area, it got 187. So being able to have that option with Opportunity Finder to expand it to a 50-mile radius can really expand your results. So again, all of that was within Opportunity Finder. It's at the top, and you just walk through making choices for what you want to go into the report. All right, so we've talked about some tips and tricks around Deal Monitor. Just in review, there are a number of types of reports that you can run. And the Deal Monitor has a lot of different uses, finding out what's happening with a key client or prospect, who's our competition, who are our best prospects, and then helping you look at trends across an industry, market, or region. There is a team of business development consultants available to help you as you have questions about our service. Their pictures are listed here. I can provide email addresses. I just copied this off of our website, but they're available to assist you. And then my contact information is here as well. So, Haley, I wanted to pause and ask if there are any questions, and also thank everybody for attending today. But, Haley, did you have any questions, or did anyone have questions? And if you want to open up the mics for anyone who's still on, that would be fine, too.
Sure. I can open the mics, Janet, but no questions have come through yet. But thank you so much. This is great.
All right. So for anyone who's still on with us, are there any questions? All right. Well, I will consider that a no, I guess. If you do think of some questions after our session, please feel free to contact me by phone or email, or anyone on our team. We're here to support you. And we thank you all for joining today. Thanks for your time.